Due to the renewed interest in Uma Musume Pretty Derby, I ended up revisiting the series, starting from season 1 all the way through to the movie, Beginning of a New Era, which I rewatched last weekend. What strikes me about Uma Musume isn't just the absurdly charming premise of an alternate universe where legendary racehorses are reborn as anime girls, but also how many ways the show manages to reframe what is essentially the same event over and over, running in circles. Now, of course, we all know it's more than that. It's the nuance of cheering on your rivals so that beating them actually means something. It's the catharsis of a triumphant comeback against impossible odds. And sometimes it's feeling guilty you absorbed your twin sister in the womb? That last one didn't land quite as strongly for me as the others, but I appreciate the risk of trying something new. What I find time and time again with Uma Musume is that it's carried by its passion for the subject matter. That's evidenced by the care the creators have taken in depicting, well, everything. The races align one-to-one with the results in our world. The horses' personalities and habits reflect their counterparts, and the race outfits are detailed to the point where elderly Japanese horse race enthusiasts can accurately surmise which horse the girls are referencing. Uma Musume knows that there is a wealth of great stories here that they can tell. However, at the end of the day, there's still quite the gap between having all this data and actually telling the story. What I find amazing is watching them take these disparate elements, which horse won what race, what period of time to cover, all the way down to what the names of the horses are, and producing a compelling story. Here's where the movie comes in. On the surface, it's a classic rival story, and could be told as a classic rival story. Up-and-coming racer gets inspired, has a competitive rival, trains hard, and eventually beats them. But that's not what happens in Beginning of a New Era. Instead, it seems like they were inspired by the names of Fuji Kiseki and Agnes Tachyon, weaving together a narrative informed by the motif of light. It establishes this intent quickly. Pocket's prism pendant catches the eye, reflecting Fuji Kiseki's image in a dozen different directions, like we're watching admiration itself scatter across her mind. But what does light have to do with racing? In Beginning of a New Era, everything. This movie is all about the properties of light, its limits, its allure, and its brilliance. First, a quick physics lesson. Light travels at approximately 300 million meters per second, the universal constant known as c. As far as we know, this is the universe's ultimate speed limit. Nothing can surpass it. Einstein showed that as you get closer to the speed of light, time slows down relative to an outside observer, as if the universe itself is trying to halt your progress. But that doesn't stop Tachyon from trying. Light is used for her as a symbol of an Uma Musume's true potential, and having light be a motif unlocks a whole world of crazy creative animation. I love the glistening rainbow imagery, the random equations, and of course, the ghost racer representing Tachyon's ultimate potential. Like chasing the ghost of your best time in Mario Kart, or a gold split in speedrunning. Watching Tachyon inch closer and closer to her ideal can only be described in one way. Hype as hell! The cinematography reflects the speed of light theming as well. In their first bout, Pocket seems in range rounding the last corner, until Tachyon's final spurt. Time slows to a crawl while Tachyon's calm, unsettling narration takes over. Pocket runs and runs and runs, but the gap just doesn't seem to close. One by one, Pocket, Dantsu, Cafe, they all realize the same thing. This isn't them versus her. In fact, they were never even part of the equation. It's Tachyon versus Tachyon. But the theme of the speed of light as a constant doesn't stop there. Rather, it becomes used in the most creative way I've seen to date. Tachyon retires. She literally becomes impossible to beat, just like how it's impossible to exceed the speed of light. Pocket will never get the chance again to challenge her directly, mano a mano, or should I say pie a pie, out on the racetrack. Tachyon is portrayed as pretty villainous here, her scenes directly following her announcement bathed in red, and our distraught runners throwing her around, wasting perfectly good tea. But I think Tachyon has done them a great service here. First, she's given them an impossible goal to aspire to. Research has shown that stretch goals, goals that seem impossible to attain, can actually boost motivation and performance. After all, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. This is the reason why third attempts at weightlifting competitions are almost always personal records. You know you've put in the work, here is the do or die moment your brain needs to reach your true potential. Like, say, the chance to gift your trainer a win at the Japanese Derby. Secondly, Tachyon has eliminated herself as a variable. Her dominance was so overpowering that you can hear the crowd treat each race as if it were a foregone conclusion. By bowing out now, she leaves a vacuum for the others to move into, and perhaps even surpass her in her stead. It reminds me of a classic story about expectations. George Danzig was your typical college student in 1939, who one day showed up late to class and copied down what he thought were homework problems on the blackboard. With some effort and good old-fashioned grit, he solved them. Those slightly harder than usual homework problems turned out to be two of the most famous unsolved problems in statistics. But because Danzig expected that he could do them, that a solution was possible, he succeeded. That's what I think Tachyon's end goal is here, evidenced by her rapt attention of the other runners and her satisfaction as they reach new heights. However, her ploy has the unintended consequence of rattling Pocket. Having attained her dream of winning the Japanese Derby, she is plagued by the impossibility of testing her skill against Tachyon. Again, light makes an appearance, or should I say, the lack of it. Haunted by what could have been, the light of her accomplishments is consistently darkened by her doubts, with Pocket unable to catch up to the glowing beacon that is Tachyon. Her races during this period are dim and dingy, either losing saturation or literally in the dark of rain. Good thing Kiseki is synonymous with glittering gemstones. Just as she initially sparked Pocket into action, she is the one to reinvigorate her. She shows Pocket the pendant she leaves behind, which she pretends not to notice has been scratched. And the next day she tosses it to her to start their race, as if to say, remember why you're here. The theming of light here for Fuji Kiseki is not utilized as a constant or limit, though they do briefly show a comparison to her old self. Rather, like the illuminated hoofprints leading the path forward, Fuji Kiseki is the torch that brings Pocket out of the darkness and guides her forward. She's the spotlight that glitters so vibrantly that you just can't help but move towards it. After the race, Pocket looks down at the shining pendant in her hands, and she remembers what is truly important. Not trying to meet a literally impossible goal, but the shining sight that made her want to run in the first place. You may not have noticed, but Tachyon has a similar pendant hanging in her lab room. At the start of the movie, it's barely there, just out of sight, dull and non-reflective. But when Pocket revisits her after coming back to reality, it's now scattering the light every which way, painting the walls in a variety of colors. And instead of Kiseki's image being featured, now Pocket is framed within the pendant, shining bright, dazzling Tachyon with her brilliance. Pocket acknowledges that she still carries the same doubts from before. Did she ever have a chance of catching up? Why even run at all? But as she continues her speech, the movie contrasts Tachyon's stunned reaction against the glittering pendant, the camera as steady as Pocket's newfound conviction. Because she explains that being the strongest doesn't mean beating an imaginary ideal. What being the strongest means to her is the act of trying, of struggling in the dirt and the mud, digging your heels in and pushing past strong opponents with your own two legs. Above all else, the act of winning against yourself. Uma Musume, Beginning of a New Era, is a great example of how you don't have to fall into the easy trope. Surely, if Cygames can take just the name Agnes Tachyon and spin out a whole metaphor about unreachable ideals, others can do the same. Uma Musume as a concept almost seems like the setup to a joke, but the more you watch, the more you understand how genius it is. This doesn't work without going all the way, but they do. From the real-life Jungle Pocket actually roaring at the crowd after the 2001 Derby win, to her and Fuji Kiseki actually sharing the same trainer. Just as Pocket describes the visceral feeling of racing to Tachyon in her last speech, the movie does a great job of putting you in the runner's place. Music mostly fades away during races, leaving only the rhythmic pounding of hoofbeats on turf, with the odd driving bassline to mark key moments. The camera hugs low angles that make the stretch ahead seem endless, and you also glimpse the runner's own POV. It's claustrophobic. You're sprinting with everything you have while dirt and rocks spray into your face. Uma Musume truly nails the desperation inherent to racing. There are so many kinds of storylines that have been told so far, all in different ways, that I have full faith I'll enjoy what comes next, which just so happens to be Cinderella Grey. And I hope that if you were skeptical before, that you'll now join me. Thanks for watching. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I initially dropped Uma Musume in Season 1, finished it to make my first video on it almost 7 years ago, and only picked it back up again due to the gacha game's new grip on my free time. But hey, I'm glad it reintroduced me to this wonderful series, and of course, this absolutely gorgeous movie. Even if it does just keep giving me 1-star wits and guts sparks. I honestly have just as much fun learning about the real horse stories as watching the anime. Rest in peace, Haru Ura. And I can't wait to see what I get introduced to next. Oh, also, if you enjoyed this video, PogShop has just released a scene analysis focusing on this very important tree. I'll leave a link here. If you liked the video, please click the like button and subscribe for more content. If you want to support me further, you can donate to my Patreon. Special thanks to Tall Tongue VG, Riku, Annie Meestuck, Mugen Zeke, Joseph Bina, LOL Kittens, Matt Weismer, Penguin Vanger, Gamer632, and William Lung for their support. And of course, if anything I said was wrong, I'm sorry. I must have stuttered.